It wasn't a dark alley or a boardroom where it happened. It was the supply closet on the 44th floor, smelling faintly of ozone and lemon polish. I had gone in for a fresh stack of legal pads. I came out with a roommate. Sarah. The voice came from behind a tower of printer paper. I froze. I knew that voice. It was the voice that had interrupted 3 board meetings in the last month. It was the voice that usually preceded a migraine or a call from the CEO, Robert Vance, asking me to handle a personal matter. Casey Vance stepped out. She was 24 years of chaotic, unbridled energy wrapped in a leather jacket that cost more than my first car. Raindrops glistened on her dark hair, and her mascara was slightly smudged, giving her a look that was half rock star, half disaster. "Casey," I said, clutching my legal pads like a shield. "You don't work here. You technically aren't allowed on this floor without a visitor pass." "Dad took my keys," she said, cutting straight to the chase. She took a step closer, effectively cornering me against the shelving unit holding the toner cartridges. The space was suddenly very small. "He took my cards. He took the loft in Tribeca. He said I need to learn the value of $1 and humility." "That sounds like Robert," I said, checking my watch. "I had a budget review in 10 minutes. "I'm sorry, Casey, but I fail to see how this involves his vice president of operations." Casey placed a hand on the shelf next to my head. It was a theatrical move, something she probably saw in a movie, but it worked. My breath hitched. Up close, she smelled like rain and expensive vanilla. Her eyes, usually full of mockery, looked genuinely terrified. "I have nowhere to go, Sarah. None of my friends will take me in now that the credit cards are frozen. I have $40 in cash and a suitcase in the lobby." "Go to a hotel," I suggested weakly. "For $40 in this city? I'd wake up without a kidney." She leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I need a place for a week. Just until I sell some of my paintings and get a deposit for a studio. Please. You're the only person in this building who doesn't look at me like I'm a liability or a paycheck." "I do look at you like a liability," I countered. "You are a walking HR violation." "I'm a distinct lack of options," she corrected. "1 week. I'll sleep on the floor. I'll be invisible." She looked at me then, really looked at me, dropping the bratty heiress act. For a second, I didn't see the boss's daughter. I just saw a young woman who had been cut loose by the only family she had. I was 42 years old. I was disciplined. I was solitary. I lived my life by a strict calendar. 1 week, I heard myself say. "But if you touch my espresso machine, you're on the street." My apartment was a reflection of my life, monochromatic, expensive, and painfully organized. Casey hit it like a Category 5 hurricane. By the 3rd day, the invisible promise had evaporated. There were combat boots in the hallway. There was a lingering scent of oil paint and turpentine in the guest bathroom. And there was Casey, constantly Casey, occupying space in a way that made my large apartment feel intimate. It was Wednesday night when the professional distance I was trying to maintain began to fracture. I was sitting at the kitchen island, laptop open, glaring at a spreadsheet. It was nearly midnight. "You look like you're trying to murder the screen with your mind," Casey's voice drifted from the living room. She walked in wearing one of my oversized t-shirts, which she had borrowed without asking, and a pair of boxers. Her legs were long, and her hair was tied up in a messy bun with a paintbrush stuck through it. "Quarterly projections," I muttered, trying not to stare at the way the soft light from the fridge caught the curve of her neck as she grabbed a carton of oat milk. "You work too much," she said, hopping up onto the counter opposite me. "Not on a stool. On the counter. Dad doesn't pay you enough for the wrinkles this is giving you." "Your father pays me very well," I said, closing the laptop. "And I don't have wrinkles." "You have stress lines," she said softly. She reached out, her thumb hovering near my forehead before she pulled it back. The air between us suddenly felt heavy, charged with static. "You're always so tight. Sarah, do you ever just exhale?" "I exhale when the work is done." "The work is never done," Casey countered. She took a sip of the milk directly from the carton, eyes locked on mine. It was a challenge. "You're 40-something, right?" 42, I corrected, stiffening. I know, I'm ancient. I didn't say ancient, she grinned, a slow, wicked thing. I was going to say established. You have this whole life, this perfect apartment, this high-powered job, and you come home to silence. Don't you get lonely? I like the silence, I lied. I think you're scared of the noise, she whispered. She slid off the counter, standing in the space between the island and me. The age gap usually felt like a canyon, her references to TikTok trends I didn't understand, her lack of a 5-year plan. But in the dim light of the kitchen, the gap felt different. It felt like tension. It felt like she possessed a vitality I had starved myself of for a decade. Go to bed, Casey, I said, my voice rougher than I intended. Make me, she murmured. My heart hammered against my ribs. I am your father's employee. You are a guest. Do not cross this line. Casey looked at me for a long, agonizing moment. Then she shrugged, the mask of indifference sliding back into place. Good night, Sarah. She walked away, but the electricity she left behind kept me awake until 3 a.m. The storm. The breaking point came on Friday. Robert Vance, my boss, her father, called me into his office at 5 p.m. He ranted for 20 minutes about Casey's irresponsibility, about how he hoped she was suffering in some hostel to learn her lesson. I sat there, nodding, feeling the weight of the secret burning a hole in my chest. If he knew she was eating takeout on my Italian leather sofa, I'd be fired before I hit the lobby. I came home exhausted, drenched from a sudden downpour, my patience frayed to a single thread. I walked in to find music blasting. Not just playing, blasting. And the smell. It wasn't turpentine this time. It was something burning. Casey! I yelled, dropping my briefcase. I ran to the kitchen. Smoke was billowing from the oven. Casey was there, waving a dish towel frantically, coughing. I tried to make lasagna, she yelled over the smoke alarm, which chose that moment to start screaming. I grabbed the fire extinguisher, but there was no fire, just a charred black brick that used to be pasta. I opened the windows, fanning the air, my heart rate spiking. When the smoke cleared and the alarm finally died, silence rushed back in, louder than before. Casey was standing by the sink, covered in soot, looking small. Defeated. I wanted to say thank you, she said, her voice cracking. For the week. I've never cooked before. We always had a chef. I just wanted to do something nice before I left tomorrow. I looked at the ruined oven. I looked at the rain lashing against the windows. And then I looked at her. The anger drained out of me, replaced by an ache so profound it nearly brought me to my knees. She wasn't the spoiled brat Robert described. She was just a girl trying to figure out how to be a person, and she was doing it in my kitchen. You ruined my pan, I said quietly. I'll buy you a new one, she sniffled, wiping her eyes and smearing soot across her cheek. When I sell a painting. Come here, I sighed. I crossed the kitchen and reached for a paper towel. I stepped into her space, gently wiping the smudge from her cheek. She went still, her breath catching. You're a disaster, Casey Vance, I whispered. I know, she breathed. Her eyes searched mine, wide and vulnerable. Is that why you hate me? I don't hate you, I said. My hand lingered on her jaw. The skin was soft, warm. I think that's the problem. I really don't hate you. The thunder outside rattled the window panes, but neither of us moved. Sarah, she said, my name sounding like a prayer on her lips. I don't want to leave tomorrow. You have to, I said, though I didn't move my hand. Your father. Screw my father, she said with sudden intensity. She reached up, her hands tangling in the lapels of my blazer, pulling me down. I'm not him. And I'm not a child. Stop treating me like one. Then stop acting like one, I challenged. Okay. She kissed me. It wasn't tentative. It wasn't the kiss of someone asking for permission. It was a collision. She tasted like smoke and rain and desperation. I should have pushed her away. I should have cited the employee handbook, the lease agreement, the 18-year age difference. Instead, I made a noise in the back of my throat and pulled her closer, my hands sliding down to her waist, gripping her tightly. She melted against me, the chaos finally finding an anchor. For a minute, the apartment wasn't structured. It wasn't organized. It was messy and hot and real. I broke the kiss, breathless, resting my forehead against hers. This is a terrible idea. The worst, Casey agreed, her lips swollen, a smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. But tell me you want me to stop. I looked at the charred lasagna. I looked at the storm outside. I looked at the woman who had turned my monochrome life into technicolor in 5 days. I can't, I admitted. The next morning, the sun broke through the gray skyline. I woke up with Casey's head on my chest, her limbs tangled with mine. The anxiety about Robert, about my job, about the future, it was all there, waiting for me at the bedroom door. But for right now, in the quiet of 7 a.m., the only thing that mattered was the steady rhythm of her breathing. She stirred, blinking awake, and looked up at me. The bravado was gone, replaced by a soft, sleepy smile. So, she whispered, about that move-out date. I ran a hand through her hair. We need to set some ground rules. Rule number 1, she asked. No cooking without supervision, I said. She laughed, burying her face in my neck. Deal. Rule number 2. We figure out how to tell your father, I said, the reality setting in. Casey propped herself up on her elbows, looking down at me. We don't have to tell him yet. Let's just be us. For a little while. Can we do that? Can you handle the chaos? I looked at the messy pile of clothes on the floor and the woman smiling above me. I think, I said, pulling her back down for a kiss, I might actually like the chaos.